Well, yeah, I don't see why a movie studio would want to be in the effects business. It's not a money-making venture. George Lucas has always said that. The margins are pretty tight. Well, George always says, because he just loves, he loves it. He's nutty enough to love it, I guess. And it takes a certain love for it. If you're making 5% on your money, and 5% these days is a big deal on our business, because you have to plow so much back into the business. Well, we're going through a cycle now. There's a lot of outsourcing, and everybody's trying to drive the cost down. Everybody, I mean, the bids are going down and down and down. It's phenomenal. And we operate in California, our company, and we're competing with companies that are in London and New Zealand and Australia and then other states in the United States and other countries, Macedonia, Eastern Europe, Europe certainly, a couple of companies in Berlin and Rome, and people give rebates, 10, 20%. Canada, same thing, 20% off, 30% off, 40%, which means you spend money, you get 40% back. Well, that's a lot, 40% on the dollar, that's a lot of money. So you save huge amounts of money. So a lot of work's being shopped around. But what usually happens is, it always goes back to what I hope is quality of image. Now, is everybody going to worry about that? No. But I still think some people can do it better than others. And, what we don't always get it right in what we do, but we try very hard to make sure it's always right or pretty close to it. And the work that we try and do it's a culmination of years, really, where our company is almost collegiate, where I think I've mentioned that there are a lot of people that I've worked with a long, long time, so everybody kind of knows their skills, and every movie we do, we build on those skills. Everybody always wants pricing to go down, but I always think that, well, okay, you go out, and I know this has happened many times. Studios go and try another company, doesn't work out so good. We have lots of 911s that come back to us because it didn't work out over there. But we can usually pull it off, and if we take it, we guarantee it, and it'll be good. And I think that's the difference. But at the same time, we're not trying to raise our prices. We're trying to lower them as much as possible. We're always looking. That's a big part of what I do between movies. Where can we draw out efficiencies? If we can do, these 5 things, we can reduce this part of the pricing 10%. Well, that's a big deal. So we're always looking at that stuff and trying to save the client money. Well, I think there are a lot of kids growing up that are not much different than I was. I just had a fascination with cameras and what you could do with them. And how did I start? I really, really begged my mom and my dad whenever I could to use the wind-up Kodak Brownie or Kodak 8mm, not even Super 8, film camera that we had for vacations and things like that. So I started making movies when I was a kid, junior high school. Then I started doing even more when I was in high school. And I just loved that idea of manipulation of image. Upside down and backwards and forwards and telephotos and all this mystical stuff that I found so amazing. But I learned it from still photography too. I mean, there's just a lot of things you can do. That capturing an image and the things you can do with it are still fascinating to me. And so when it came time to go to school, I thought, well, college is a big deal. I kind of feel bad, but I really want to study film. So I did. Went to UCLA. It was fabulous because we got to learn all aspects of filmmaking. Never knew what I'd need out of all that, but my love was always toward probably photography and editing at that point. So when I got out of school, I started in the freelance business working for a few people that fortunately needed, I started as a loader, loading mags, but then pretty soon I'm the DP, director of photography, and I'm shooting it, and I've got my little crew. And then I'd edit the film, too. It might be an industrial or a small commercial, what have you. So I was learning what I need to shoot to cut later. It's a really good thing to know. And then some buddies of mine, this is true, a buddy of mine who had done a film along with me in UCLA, called me up. I was doing a cheapy sci-fi film over in Canoga Park. He said, hey, come over and see what we're doing. We're doing pretty neat sci-fi film. And I go over and see it, and they've got this new rig called a motion control camera. Turns out they're shooting Star Wars, but they didn't have a name at the time. And I meet some people, including Dennis Muir, and I meet a bunch of people on that day, and we're just a bunch of... There was this groundswell of people that's all kind of getting interested in the same stuff about the same time. And I said, oh my gosh. And they had this... I was using this rig where you had to crawl around on the floor and turn the motors all the time as it flew it live while the camera's going. So I see this thing that you can program and you can record and it'll remember what it's doing and go again. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. So my friend David said, the only way you can work on features, it looks like, is you got to be union. And the only way you can get it union these days is maybe you can get on another effects picture. It turns out Star Trek, the motion picture, was starting up, and I got hired on that, and that was my first job on what I would call a union feature, and I got in the union because of that. And there was personally, if you want my story, there was a real division at the end of that movie. There was a lot of, mostly guys, that came onto that film. It was a big crunch to try and get that done. Doug Trumbull was doing the film, and a bunch of my buddies went back to live action. They said, I don't want to be shooting models in a dark room anymore. And I went out the other way. I go, I kind of find this kind of fascinating. I've done the other thing with the actors. That's great, but I think I'm going to stick with this for a while. And that's what happened. And so I stuck with it. But there was literally a time I got hired a couple of years later by ILM, and the old man of the group, who was maybe not even 40, I remember we'd all stand there between shots, you're out programming spaceships and whatnot out on the stage, and we're standing having coffee. Everybody, making coffee at the coffee machine. And we're talking about, I still remember, well, what are we going to do after this whole thing conks out? I mean, people are just not going to want to keep seeing spaceship movies. Effects are just not, we just didn't see if the future was going to keep going at all. So, sometimes you're right in the middle of it and you cannot predict the future at all. The only thing we knew was if more directors and writers don't make more effects-oriented stories, well, there's not going to be a lot of work. Lo and behold, it's pretty amazing now how many stories need effects. Just about every movie has some sort of an effect in it. It's almost a return to what old Hollywood used to be, where just about every film had somebody on the lot doing some effects for the film. Anyway, that's kind of where we are now.